I mean, we talked about the new PlayStation service. I wanted to also touch on Game Pass. I have heard a lot of new
Yeah.
rumblings as well. I think last week, they talked about they presented some stats at GDC that is no surprise to me because Game Pass is Game Pass.
Hmm.
They had some interesting findings. I pulled this article from Enemy. I saw it elsewhere though. But at GDC 2022, Microsoft released Game Pass stats, which suggest the service users try out more games than those who aren't subscribed. Makes sense. I
Yep.
think it's definitely makes sense. There is, I think the biggest thing though are these graphics that were posted through Benji Sales on Twitter. He said there was some graphics they presented at GDC. Um, biggest thing is the biggest points from this, I guess, are subscribers pay 40% more. They play 40% more games after joining Game Pass. Games on average see a 8.3% lift in players, as you can see this chart here, kind of the bell curve. But the average of that is 8.3 on the high end. The 28 times the amount of players, like I guess that you could see, in a player lift, so to speak. Um, the Game Pass also broadens, I guess, the funnel for day and date games. So for large publishers, subscribers, they're willing to spend more. I mean, there's also just like, I mean, we can see here from large publishers, we see the first 30 days, like these averages like climb drastically for I guess the day and date games that come out. Large publishers, they see a lot of like these day one games, like they see these huge surges,
Yeah.
right? Because it's on Game Pass. Um, large publishers see it, but I mean, independents see it. They reap the most benefit from
Yes.
this, which I think makes the most sense. I mean, we're talking a 15x increase when they launch a game on Game Pass day one. It's it's such a
That's so
beautiful thing
sick.
to see. Oh my goodness, it's so sick. Yeah, day one launches are the biggest. I think one of the biggest things we see is if you're on Game Pass, where you're going to get a lot more people playing your game. And there's also other graphics. The biggest thing too, and I think what will make any stakeholder happy is that members are willing to spend more money on games if they get it through Game Pass. So
Yeah.
if the game's free, obviously you get great content there, or you get it at a very low rate, very low monthly rate. I mean, if that microtransaction all of a sudden looks a little more tasty, you know what I'm saying? When you're not having to pay the 60 up front, you're willing to pay a little more on microtransactions and add-ons and you know the like. So it's no surprise there, I don't think. I mean, and the last graphic they show is that indies we talked about on ID at Xbox. It's like they're huge independent developer push. We see those ID at Xbox partners, their revenue increases astronomical. It's like triple, I think, what they were seeing
Yeah.
before.
It's insane.
Yeah, I mean they show from 2016 to 2020 and how much the Game Pass participation has helped independent developers that are a part of the system. So, um, seeing independent, I think shine here is the biggest thing for me. The fact that we get to see these smaller developers have a better chance of making something sustainable and then growing as a
Yeah.
studio and then making these insane games that are years from now. I think ID at Xbox is really like they're really watering that plant, and then it's just gonna grow into something insane, and we're gonna see these crazy IPs in a few years. It's very exciting. Like I feel like most people, especially they look at like independent games and they kind of just bat an eye at it. They don't really like think about it, but it's just like, especially those like early games, they may not be the best, but you only go up in game development, like especially when you're doing the smaller stuff. So it's very exciting stuff, man. Yeah, I mean, I know this don't surprise you, Mike, seeing Game
I've been
Pass
calling it.
do this. I
I've been
mean,
calling it.
I feel like
Um,
it's kind of obvious, but yeah, it's
have you played any indie games using Game Pass?
um, come to think of it, I don't know if I have. I think there was one game I played. It was a while ago though. I'm really bad about like not getting like, especially like checking Game Pass and seeing what's available. Like I
Oh,
check like I check I try to check at least once a month, but it's it's very easy to get caught up in other games for me. So um, but I mean, there's just so much. I mean, there's a huge like especially single player catalog. that I have that are of games that are on Game Pass that I want to check out. Like I think it's like Plague Tale Innocence is one of them. I haven't had a chance to see that. I've seen the gameplay; it looks phenomenal. There's some others too. I think like Hellblade. I think's even on Game Pass. I definitely want to check that out because I haven't had a
Yeah.
chance to play that. There's a lot though, man. There's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's so sick to, like, just get on, and if it's this is actually like, Game Pass is one of the few things where it's perfect if you're a streamer, by the way, and you're just looking for a new game to play. But, like, if you're just gaming and you're sick of playing the same game over and over and over again, you can just open up the library, go to the indie section, and then just look at some previews or whatever and see if that might be interesting to you. Download it real quick because the games usually aren't huge,
Yeah,
and then get to playing. And it's like, why would you not do that? Like, it's included in your game.
yeah,
And that I think what's happening is people that are in that, like, same, like, mindset of trying out new games, they get to an indie developer, they know it's an indie developer, and they're just like, "Oh, wow, this game is actually, like, really good. Like, I wanna help support this game. I
yeah,
wanna see the sequel. I wanna be a part of it." You know what I mean? Because it's true, you can be. You can get super involved with these indie guys. I mean, they're like everyday people
yeah,
that will respond to your Twitters, like, posts and stuff like that.
yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I think it's cool, man. I really do. I didn't know it was that big of a jump, though.
Yeah, I know.
15 times more likely to play
Yeah, isn't that
if
crazy?
they're on idea Xbox,
Well, like
creators, like,
yeah, like for like the idea at Xbox like games, like for all these indie games, that day, if you're on Game Pass day one, people are 15%. See a 15% growth of people that are willing to try your game. It's crazy.
I mean,
Um,
that's if you're a developer, that should be your goal.
yeah, for real.
Like,
You know, there was one game thought of recently that I played. I don't think it was certainly I don't think it was like an ID on Xbox, but it was an indie game. It was called a game called Unrailed, which is a pretty fun kind of co-op game where you're essentially you have these stations and the game goes on forever and you have these stations and you have to build rails between each station and let a train go along the rail as you build it. And the goal is to get from one station to the other, and then you can upgrade your train with each station you arrive at. It's a very fun co-op game. I think you can have like 2 to 4 players. It's a game where you have to. It's a very teamwork oriented game where you have to work together to build the rail for this train to travel, and then you get to upgrade your train. You go to different. There's like different like biomes too. Like there's a snow biome, a desert biome. You're in space at one point. It gets crazy.
what?
Yeah, and like when you go to each
That's
of these
cool.
biomes, it introduces a new challenge for you. So like in the
Yeah.
snow biome, obviously it snows, so the snow gets heavy and makes you move slower. So you have to try and like figure out ways to move around more efficiently. And like the desert biome, it's like it's very dry, so your train can like heat up quicker, and it's very hard to find like water sources because the engine does heat up very quickly, and you have to constantly put it out. So you have to figure out like a water source
Oh,
to use,
no.
like put it out. Um, but yeah, there's so it's like very it's such a creative game, and like it's very again it's a small game, it doesn't take much to download. I was very hesitant to play, but I had a friend that was like, "Yo, let's play this," and I was like, "All right, cool." So like I was a little hesitant, but I hopped on, and like within like 5 minutes I was hooked, and we just played hours, and like we played it like 2 or 3 other times. It was just so much fun. Like you just don't knock it till you try it, you know. You'll find some gems out there in the indie game realm.
I mean, you really will. So, definitely check it out.
Check it out, baby. Game Pass. Speaking of Game Pass.